Weirding Way Media.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bollywood Cinema Club, a podcast where every other week we take a look at Indian cinema, be it Bollywood, Collywood, Tollywood, and everything in between. I am the host of the Culture Cast, Chris Dashew, and I am joined by my good friend. You have heard him here before plenty of times on this show. He's also on Scary Stories We Tell a couple times, and the Culture Cast. He's been everywhere, but he's here right now. And him and I went and saw this movie in person, together, in real life, because we're real life friends. My good friend and yours, Dustin.
Hi. and movie theaters, like, I just haven't been to them forever.
Yeah, well, me either. The last time I went to the theaters was Doctor Strange 2, so that was like 8 months ago. So, well, going where we live to see an Indian cinema film on opening day, I didn't expect anyone to be there, and there wasn't anyone there, at least not for our showing. I think there were people at the showings later in the day, but if you're here and you clicked on this episode, then you know what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about a little film, and by little, I mean pretty big film that came out on the 25th of January, 2023. That is India Republic Day. We're going to be talking about the latest entry into the YRF spy universe. We're going to be talking about Pathaan. So the film,
Well done.
thank you. So the film is directed by Siddharth Anand. It's written by Srihand Raghavan and Abhidas Tarwala, and it stars everybody's favorite Khan, at least, well, one of my three favorite Khans, Shah Rukh Khan, as the titular Pathaan, a man tasked with taking down a really bad guy, played by, an actor who, if you've listened to this show or if you're a fan of Indian cinema and if you've seen the first Doom movie, well, you would know all about John Abraham. John Abraham plays... Oh, my God. He plays Jim, which is actually the character's name, and he is a big bad guy who was an agent of RAW, which is the research and analysis wing of the it's a foreign intelligence agency of India. And so SRK plays Pathaan, who is an agent of RAW tasked with taking down another agent, a former agent of RAW, played by, like I mentioned, John Abraham. And along the way, we also ran into a familiar face from our journeys through Indian cinema, Deepika Padukone as Rubina Mohsin, a double/triple/quadruple agent. We'll find out. And hey, there is some cameos along the way, which is something that we knew about, thankfully, because we did our research ahead of time. So, Dustin, I am curious. This is the first Indian cinema film that you'd seen in theaters. Same with myself. We went together, sat down and watched it for 2.5 hours. And I've got to know, what did you think?
Well, we got done talking about Bahubali one night, part 2. And this movie got brought up that, hey, this movie comes out tomorrow. Just happened to look it up. It was playing in our local theater, which is super different. Yeah. It would.
I'm saying we're in like a small market, but I mean, we are not an ethnically diverse community in that way.
Right. So that did one thing that showed me was, okay, this is expected to be a pretty big deal. And you had said that, like, you explained many reasons why this was a big deal. With, SRK coming back to the big screen in like 5 years.
I mean, that's probably, I think, the biggest deal is one of the biggest Indian stars coming back and leading a film and an action film for the first time in a while.
So we just kind of said, let's go to it. So I'm super glad we did, because it was the type of movie that I think is best watched in a theater. There's just the way, like, they land punches, like it just it sounds aggressive in a movie theater with those bass thumps and the explosions and the just everything. That movie in a movie theater, it was awesome. I really enjoyed it. It was action upon action upon action. It was everything. I had not seen an SRK movie to date, so it was everything that I had heard SRK could be in a movie, and from what I understand, he has quite the range, not just action movies. So
he's not known for his action movies at all, frankly. Like when I think of SRK, I think of the DDLJ, which I showed you. You know, him singing at the piano, singing Ruk Jal Dilwani. Like that's what I think of. So
if you look at his body of work, there's comedies and romance and a pretty wide spectrum of things. So that kind of fits. But I just, I was just smiling, laughing, hooting and hollering the whole time. It was a lot of fun. I want to see it again. I want to see the rest of the Spy Universe movies too now.
So there is that. And I think that you and I are probably now going to embark down on that road of Ek the Tiger and that, because again, if you walk away from this movie and you're not interested or sold on those movies and you haven't seen them, I don't know how you couldn't be interested. The scene with Salman Khan and SRK in this movie is fucking amazing. And you don't even have to know who Salman Khan is and understand the importance of who he is in Indian cinema and everything that comes with having him in this movie. You don't have to understand any of that to appreciate the scene that they're in together, but it helps and appreciate it more, especially with a post-credit scene that we get. But I am with you. I had no expectations going into this other than we watched the trailer together. It was absolutely everything I could have wanted from an action movie trailer. It sold me on the movie in a way that action movie trailers tend not to, because I mean, I feel like I've seen it all before. And I feel like if you're someone who watches a lot of movies, like Dustin, like myself, like you, dear listener, then you've probably seen a lot of action set pieces. But when you watch a trailer for a movie and you go, holy shit, I've never seen this before, that for me is really exciting. And it's something that will, like you said, drive me to go see the movie the next day. And so, yeah, I think for me, I'm glad that we went, just up at the top here. I'm glad we went and saw it pre-spoilers. This is a movie totally worth checking out, like you said, in theaters. I know that, that idea post-COVID kind of is a little maybe hard to deal with because, only in theaters. And it's like, nobody gives a shit. Just put it on streaming. Like, I'm sorry, but at the same time, I say that, but then we watch a movie like this where it deserves to be appreciated in the biggest format that you can find it in, because it is a massive movie that goes all over the place in the way that a James Bond or a Mission Impossible movie does, but it doesn't feel as self-serious as those movies. It's serious, but I don't think it ever loses that sense of fun. And I think that for me, that sense of fun is not something that I am used to getting anymore. And like you mentioned with Bahubali, the conclusion, when we talked about that the last time we did one of these together, Bahubali is fun. It leaves room for that fun. And this movie does as well. We thankfully had nobody else in our theater. It was just you and I sitting there for 2.5 hours. And because this is a subtitled movie, and we're having to read anyways, we were just talking about the movie and talking while watching the movie. And
we were just kicking it. It was fun.
It helped my appreciation of everything because I was able to really appreciate the movie with someone else while it's happening. Because again, I really believe that, cinema is one of the few things that we as human beings can appreciate together as a shared experience. And yeah, it was just you and I in the theater, but that's what made it such a memorable experience. But the thing is, the movie's good too. So from here on out, we're going to be talking spoilers. But this, I mean, everything that takes place in this movie it's off the wall. It's just as insane as the promise of the trailer is lived up to in the movie, 100%.
And the trailer, everything you see in the trailer happens in like the first 25 minutes.
Right. You're not, even if you're the most astute movie watcher, you might have a hard time. Oh, this is at the end of the movie and this is at the beginning. Because I mean, American trailers, it seems like they're like chronological. They're like telling the story of the movie from start to finish. I mean, we watched the trailer for the new Ant-Man movie around the same time we watched Pathaan. And I think I even commented, like, I'm glad they don't give away what's going on in the movie. But I'm sure once I watch the movie, I'll be like, oh, no, they totally did. I just didn't realize it. But like you said with Pathaan, like I didn't feel that way walking out of the movie. I felt like I was engaged the whole time by the movie, and the movie lived up up to that promise of it's Shah Rukh Khan looking like a himbo daddy, kicking the shit out of John Abraham, Jim, who looks like the most badass motherfucker possible.
Oh, yeah.
Like, again, like, even though the movie is doing everything it can to make him a badass, John Abraham just has a great look, has a great voice, he has a great screen presence, and he is a perfect foil for SRK. Because SRK, he's playing Pathaan, but he's kind of just, playing himself. I mean, it's kind of, that's the thing with SRK, it's kind of always just, it's him, but like what he is as an actor and the charisma that he brings to the role, he just kind of effortlessly dissolves into the role. And so in this, like, I fully believe that he is Pathaan, like 100%. And I cannot wait to see what comes next with all this. But I'm so glad SRK is back because he's fucking amazing.
Yeah. Well, like you mentioned, the whole movie was just dialed to 11. Like when they were making the movie, they're like, okay, that was cool. How can we make it cooler?
Well, and that's what it felt like, because the best kind of action movies are just escalating and escalating and escalating and escalating to the point where there is no further that you can go. And I think this movie does a pretty good job of telling a narrative that not only escalates throughout the film, but also it has some kind of twists and turns to it. There's a pretty big twist, I guess, at like the halfway point, the intermission.
Yeah.
And then there's another twist about halfway through the second act. So, and I mean, it's not that I didn't see some of them. One of them, it's not obvious, but like you could do one or the other here. Like you could choose to have the character be a double agent or not. Like, but the other twist I didn't see coming with the mechanism itself, the kind of,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was kind of like, oh shit moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, I don't know, like you said, it keeps you engaged from a story perspective, from an action perspective. The story was cool with how they did some of those twists, and then you almost can't look away from it because you might miss something.
Right.
And it may not always be an action moment, but something is happening. Especially if you're reading subtitles.
Well, yeah. Well, and that's the other thing. We saw this movie in theaters. They showed it with subtitles. They didn't even say they were showing it with subtitles. We just went in assuming it would be with subtitles, and it was with subtitles. But, I guess I don't see what the issue is. It's a different kind of movie watching experience, but I don't think it's an unwelcome one.
No, it doesn't even faze me.
Like in this day and age, because I haven't gone to a movie theater and watched a movie with subtitles in a long time. And I didn't mind it at all. Like, again, as someone who sits at home and watches a lot of subtitle movies, I just didn't know how it was going to feel seeing a movie with subtitles in theaters. And I liked it.
Yeah.
I mean, again, some people aren't going to want to talk through the whole movie, but you and I were the only ones in the theater. So who gives a shit? Like,
right.
Which, I mean, is kind of a shame, because for me, I got an experience that you and I will be able to share. But like, this is the kind of movie you want to see with like a packed house of people like whooping and hollering and interacting and responding to the movie the way the filmmakers intended.
Yeah, that Star Wars like crowd. Like if you had that kind of crowd opening night, just everybody into it. Like, that'd have been a whole nother experience.
Not even like a question, because there are some moments in this movie that are like stand up and cheer moments. Like really, especially towards the end of the movie where we kind of get into the climax. But, we have the John Abraham character of Jim, who is a former RAW agent who goes, hey, I am now essentially Moriarty. I'm a terrorist for hire. So that's, what Moriarty is in Sherlock Holmes. He's a criminal for hire. And he is hired by a Pakistani army general to take vengeance against India by any means necessary. And the way that they do it is by engineering a smallpox that kills people. Little on the nose, but all right. It was a tad on the nose. And so Pathaan is brought in from exile to take on Jim and stop him from kidnapping some scientists who will then help him engineer this virus. And that setup is just pretty straightforward. Like but it goes all over the place. We introduce Deepika Padukone's character, and she ends up being a triple agent, which she is so charismatic as well. And she plays off of SRK really well, that I like that there is a twist with her character being kind of morally ambiguous, but I don't think the movie needed it per se. It does feel a little unneeded.
Yeah, I see that.
It ends up not. It ends up not adding anything to the narrative, really. Like
because they end up teaming up anyway. Yeah,
right, and he ends up. Oh, I'm going to save you anyways. So it feels more like, obviously we haven't watched Ek the Tiger yet, but they kind of make reference to that in this movie because Deepika Padukone's character is a Pakistani agent. She's an ISI agent. So she is not used to dealing with Indian agents the way she deals with Pathaan. And that is apparently echoed in Ek the Tiger with Salman Khan in that movie and Katrina Kaif. So it's interesting that they keep doing this. I mentioned it to you that it seems like they're trying to bridge the gap between India and Pakistan through media, because again, they talk about it in this movie a little bit, but I mean, it's talked about in plenty of other Indian films. When they're not talking about the British, they're normally talking about the Pakistani, because again, Pakistan and India is a conflict that could explode into really bad shit for everybody in the Kashmir. And it's not something that's I think one of the only issues with this movie is there's a little bit of cultural context that's needed for the villain's motivation. The big villain, General Kadir, played by Manish Wada. You need some cultural context for what's going on at the beginning of the movie.
It's probably folks are probably more aware of that. Like if people in India are probably watching this and
they know, like it's not, in a lot of ways, the explanation is for an international crowd's benefit, as little as they explain, which I don't think they really explain a whole lot. But again, like you said,
a pissed off
dying
military
general
guy. Oh, the general. Yeah.
But
I was thinking of Jim.
Jim, he's also pissed off. But it's interesting because, again, like you do need a little cultural context to understand kind of the overarching conflict, and maybe the conflict that the movies are building to is some sort of India versus Pakistan big war. Who knows what these movies are building to? I have no idea, but it would lead me to believe that these movies are probably building towards some sort of Avengers-esque team up between Salman Khan and Shah Rukh Khan and Tiger Shroff and all these actors that they've been introducing and incorporating into this world. So this through line of Indian agents and Pakistani agents working together is an interesting through line, because again, like this movie's twist doesn't need to exist, and it doesn't really do anything with India and Pakistan, but I guess I don't understand what they ended up getting out of it ultimately.
Yeah.
Because they make such a big deal out of it. Like,
yeah, I do like this connected universe of like this type of thing. It's not superpowers. It's not, anything supernatural or cosmic. It's just cops and spies and army guys. And yeah, if it leads to this big crescendo of a movie, I think that's super cool because it's just these badasses. It's like not quite like Expendables was, but in a way where it just gathers all these people names and people that into one movie, and it's just gonna be cool.
Well, and you see it in this movie a little bit, because we do have a pretty extended scene where Pathaan is on a train and he has been kidnapped after the climax of the first act. We get the intermission, and Pathaan is now on a train in Russia, and he's being taken away to be imprisoned. And wouldn't you know it, all of a sudden, he's about to get beaten up even worse by the kind of other prisoners on the train, because they're essentially being given weapons by the head prison, I guess, guard to kill Pathaan. And all of a sudden the top of the train opens and in pops the scarf, and in pops Salman Khan, who is in the first two movies of this connected universe, probably before they ever decided to make a universe, because I don't think with Ek the Tiger, everything I've read, they had no intention of that being like an Iron Man type thing where it's like, we're doing this with an intention down the road. I think they saw, okay, well, we've got a movie with Salman Khan in it. Now we've got a movie with Tiger Shroff and Hrithik Roshan. And it's like, well, why wouldn't we do this? And to your point, it's super exciting because there's nothing like this in American cinema. There's not.
No.
I mean, we have Mission Impossible, but that's one movie, and that's the same guy over and over again. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, you might like Tom Cruise. I don't mind Tom Cruise, but it is just Tom Cruise over and 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 over again for like 8 movies. I mean, even James Bond breaks it up with recasting of the actor, but
because this is like if James Bond, Jason Bourne, and why can't I think of Tom
like
Cruise's
the man from
name?
Uncle, even also.
Yeah. It's like if those guys all came into a movie, and did a Mission Impossible type movie.
Right. Or like an even higher level threat. Because I'm expecting whatever
Yeah.
the big team up is, it's going to be some sort of like even higher level threat. So
more than smallpox.
Oh my God. I'm actually really a fan of these like engineered virus movies. I don't know why, but it always like the stakes always feel really elevated. Like The Rock, right? Like that movie.
Yeah.
Like stakes are really elevated. Like
because it's pretty fresh in our minds.
There is that, but it's also one of those things where it's like once you've let it out, like you can't do anything about it. And I like that there are people willing to write villains that are just beyond reproach. Because that's the thing, even with his kind of goofy name of Jim, which when we heard it the first time, we laughed out loud.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't sound intimidating.
No.
But then you get the scene of them using a camera hooked onto the side of his bazooka to give us a kind of moving shot, which they show in the trailer, and it's fantastic, and it's great seeing it on the big screen. But that's kind of you do get some scenes with him before that, but that's kind of your big introduction to him as the character, and kind of what he's trying to do is the scene where he kidnaps the scientists and Shah Rukh Khan is trying to stop him. That takes the idea that the Matrix created with that fight on top of an 18-wheeler, and it actually gave it stakes and made it interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And it made it where I was actually invested in what was going on, because in the Matrix is like nobody's gonna die. Neo's gonna swoop in and save the day because he can fly. In this movie, there's no magical superpower to write themselves out of the corner. In this, it's they have to be creative, and I think they are pretty creative with the action set pieces. They're pretty novel when you have a man dragging helicopters through the air because they're tied together because they were trying to get one prisoner from one helicopter to the other, and he hooks it to the top of an 18-wheeler. I've never seen that before, any more than you have. And it's like, oh my God, there are still people making films that can surprise me as a viewer, as somewhat of a jaded viewer, because again, I just like yourself, I watch a lot of movies.
I've uttered those words a few times watching some of these films, and I feel like Indian cinema has a knack for kind of pushing the boundary in a way that you don't expect.
Well, and it feels like they're less restrained by the expectations. I mean, yes, there are musical numbers in this movie, and yes, they're catchy as fuck, and they're and not only that, but can we talk about how sexy everybody in this fucking movie is? Because this is like a smoke show on steroids. From Shah Rukh Khan looking like the himbo daddy of your dreams to Deepika Padukone looking like the most beautiful woman on the planet every time the camera goes to her, to even Jim. I mean, Jim. John Abraham is still a good-looking guy. It's everybody in this movie for the most part is varying degrees of good-looking, and they're all kicking the shit out of each other.
Even the terrorist Bieber was.
Oh my God.
He was still jacked.
I like how there's a character in this movie whose haircut can only be described as Justin Bieber adjacent, if not just full on Justin Bieber. So
you've got all these badasses, and like they have basically the terrorist farmers market in one scene.
That's like the opening scene of the movie, right?
Yeah. And everybody, it's like, oh yeah, that's a guy dressed in like all black military gear terrorist. Oh, there's the Arab terrorist. Oh, there, you've got your, cookie cutter terrorists that you have seen in the world.
Right.
That stereotypical look. And then you got the Justin Bieber terrorist, and it's just kind of shocks you when you see him.
And I think he might be the one who says Jim the first time.
Yeah.
I think they say Jim for the first time in that scene. I really like John Abraham in this movie. He's such a good villain. Just unrepentant piece of shit. Like to the end, in a way that, again, like you normally have these like villains who sometimes are redeemable, but it's like this guy is given a lot of opportunities to redeem himself, and he just plows through them with every opportunity, which I appreciate. I really appreciate a villain he's just bad, and he's really bad.
He still has a charming streak to him.
Right. He does. He really does.
Still does. And there's even a part where a small part of you is kind of rooting for him because of what happens to him. You're kind of like, yeah, get him.
So, as these films tend to do, within the first half an hour of the movie, we're sent back in time for an hour of the movie's runtime. And not only are we sent back in time to why Jim is the way he is and why Pathaan is where he is, we also learn all about Topeka Patacone's character in a flashback, which I'm pretty sure breaks a lot of narrative storytelling rules, because you can't flash. How can the person flashing back know about that? Whatever. It literally makes no sense if you think about it. How could the person flashing back know about the flashback that the other person's having when they're not that person? That's all I'm saying. But regardless, the first half of the first act of the movie is in the present day, and then the second half takes place in the past, and we learn why Jim turned on the Indian government. We don't know why he's been kidnapped in this flashback that we see, but we see Pathaan's boss essentially telling him, hey, he turned on us because he was captured along with his wife and being held hostage by terrorists who were threatening to kill his wife. And instead of paying for his family to be freed like we would do with the prime minister or a political figure like SRK says in this scene, we let them shoot his pregnant wife at close range with an AK-47 and
in the belly.
Yeah, and not just bang either. Like them, they were making a point, and it's like you said, like I get it. The character of Jim, his motive makes sense, and like you said, I appreciate that. I appreciate that the movie, while he is this kind of repugnant figure who, by the end of it, he's totally okay with wiping out God knows how many people with Rakt Beej, the demon, which ends up being the smallpox, kind of engineered disease. He does have a little bit of, like you said, like I feel for this character, because I've seen the lengths he's been pushed to. Yep.
Don't want to poke Papa Bear.
And I appreciate that, really, because again, I appreciate that he is a straight up villain out of the mold of so many characters in these big action movies, but he is given a sympathetic side. And like you said, you do understand where he's coming from. He's not without reason why he's doing this. And frankly, if it were another movie, he would be the hero of the movie.
Yeah.
He just happens to be killing people with smallpox, which there's no good way of going about that.
Yeah, that might have taken it a step too far. Just a
step too far. I do like that, within this movie that is kind of an action movie, we also have a little bit of a heist scene where they have to go and steal a lock and a key to get this virus from a vault in Moscow.
The movie just keeps giving. There's just so much, so many boxes it checks that you want in an action movie.
Yeah, and I feel so let down by American action movies recently. I just in general, like they all kind of just feel very samey. There was a long time where action movies weren't allowed to be fun. Everything had to be James Bond or Christopher Nolan inspired. It's got to be dark and serious and dour, and Batman's not actually Batman. He's just a guy in a suit. And Harvey Dent is a guy with a burned face who actually died. It's like, fuck off. Can't we just have fun? Is fun not allowed? Are we not allowed to enjoy ourselves when we go to the movies? I'm not saying every movie needs to be a complete, fucking CGI nightmare and an action fuck fest. But like life's too short to go and have a character like Batman being turned into this dour and serious meditation on justice and crime and vigilantism. Like, could you have done that with something other than Batman and still tackled the same topics? So it's nice that an action movie is okay with being fun. That's very rare. It really
fun,
is.
Blow shit up, have some sweet fight scenes.
SRK is fucking ripped in this movie.
Yeah.
He is a specimen. Is. Oh, yeah. But he's the one with his shirt off a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
And you know what? He worked hard for that body, so I don't blame him for wanting to showcase it. Do you?
Not one bit.
No. If I looked like that, I would have my shirt open all the time with my himbo daddy hair up.
I mean, the first time I saw him with the shirt off in the movie, I think I said, damn.
Well, and the funny thing is, like we've been kind of talking about, that's not... The expectation with Shah Rukh Khan is not he's going to take his shirt off and he's going to be jacked. That's just, you've seen him in other things, pictures of him in other things where he doesn't look anything like this. But it would seem that he's entering an interesting stage of his career because the next movie that he has that's coming out in June is another action movie, but he's playing a dual role, which is kind of interesting, kind of exciting.
Dad.
There it is. They're doing Bahubali all over again. I do like that in this movie there aren't flashbacks and played by different people that are supposed to same actors, different people. I'm glad there's none of that. This is supposed to be Pathaan's dad. It just also looks like him.
Pathaan Senior.
Yeah. But no, it's called Jawan, and it comes out in June 2nd. And he's working with a Tamil film director, so that'll be interesting.
So SRK had a movie hiatus, and now he's hitting the ground running.
Fuck yeah, dude! Hell yeah! Because you know what else? You know what else we're getting this year? Tiger 3, baby, with Pathaan as a cameo.
You know, you mentioned like when Salman Khan's character busted through the train. Yeah, I have not seen any of those other movies. I became aware of them the night before, and when that moment happened, it gave chills, and I know nothing about this.
Right? I'm right there with you. Because all we knew was that he wears a scarf, and the moment we saw that scarf, I was like, it's fucking Salman Khan. And then you get a scene that anybody in Western cinema would kill for your somewhat level of those kinds of actors to be in a scene together, riffing off one another and being kind of cutesy and fun and tongue in cheek. Like you would love to see that with American actors. And we've seen it in Avengers and Expendables and stuff like that. But those always feel like a put on. Like it always feels forced. Here it's just like two charismatic guys just being charismatic and beating the fuck out of people.
Because it'd be like if Jason Bourne was in a fight and then Ethan Hunt busts through to like help him out. And,
pretty much.
It'd just be like, wow.
Yeah. And that's the way I think that's probably my favorite part of the entire movie.
Yeah. That moment, all of a sudden, I want to watch all these other movies.
Right. No, I'm
moment.
I'm with you. And again, I think, we've talked about this before, and I feel like I talk about it on every episode, but I will continue to pound this point home every single time these actors step on screen, like Salman Khan and Shah Rukh Khan, and even John Abraham. Just, I don't know what it is, but they're just so goddamn charismatic. And they're just, they are bringing an approach to acting that it doesn't feel like acting. It just feels natural.
I think I even said in the theater, I was like, this is captivating. Like I am so sucked into this movie.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not like that with I'll tell you, the last movie I saw in theaters, Doctor Strange, was not that way. I was bored. I was watching and I was like, this is fine. This is just more of the same.
Yeah. And like in comparison, I like the Marvel stuff.
Same
comic book nerd growing up. And so I like seeing it on the big screen. It's fun. But yeah, I never am I on the edge of my seat or like jumping up out of my seat to just hoot and holler with what's going on. And it's just different. It hits different.
And it feels in a lot of ways like Western cinema, at least the action movies, a lot of they're just going through the motions, And again, when you use, and I'm not saying this movie doesn't have CGI, because it has CGI. It has a fair amount of CGI, has a fair amount of stunt people in place of our actors. You could see it from time to time. There's a CGI face that's on Shah Rukh Khan. That's clearly his stunt double.
I wondered. I
Yeah,
wondered.
you can see it from time to time, and it's not great. But again, like everything else is so captivating in any other movies, I might notice, but I just don't care here.
Yeah, they put the movie together in a way where, yeah, you don't care. You just want more.
Remember how much everybody gave that Joss Whedon cut of Justice League shit for that stupid fucking Superman mustache thing and the fake
Yeah.
mouth? Some of the replacements in this movie, some of the CGIing of Shah Rukh Khan's face onto the stunt person's body is that bad. But I do not care. I don't care.
Nope.
Because I'm captivated throughout, like you've said, by a movie that's, again, at times, obviously it has to exist within this setup universe of the YRF spy universe. So it's grounded. It feels grounded in reality, but it's that James Bond grounded in reality where it's reality, but a little askew, because in James Bond, you have cars that go underwater and jetpacks and like technology that if you knew about it, it would be life-changing for anybody, like a jetpack, or a lot of these things in James Bond are like, even if it's not in a violent application, it would still be like technology that people would want to have. And this movie has some of that with like jetpacks and stuff and kind of fantastic
hologram invention.
Right. Some fantastical technology, but it's still pretty rooted in reality, but not in the way that like a Bourne is, where all the fun has been stripped out. And it's
that's
very
just all grit. Yeah.
But that's the thing. The kind of the action set pieces in this movie are pretty hard. Like you mentioned, they're pretty hard hitting and they're pretty gritty. They're not like Marvel style, like super like slick and super like stylized. I mean, you do have a level of choreography going on, but it's not all CGI.
The scene is one of my favorite scenes, and it's right towards the beginning when Pathan's trying to escape from wherever he's being held captive, and Bieber's punching him, and he starts speaking to him, I think, in Arabic, and Pathan was just got rocked. He's like, interrupts him. He goes, "Hey, Hindi."
Curse at me in Hindi.
Yeah. So like, hey, chump.
Well, and that for me is what SRK brings to the role. Like it's that level of kind of tongue-in-cheek comedy, charisma. Every time he's on screen, you can't look away. He's just he's so effusive with his charm. It's just so feels like it comes natural to him. Like if you were to meet Shah Rukh Khan, which I would love to, it feels like you would meet him and you would just be like, I would love nothing more than to be in the presence of this person for an hour, just to absorb whatever it is that they've got that they were born with. Because he's born with whatever it is, he's born with it. Like he's just a natural showman and such a talented actor. Because like you said, his range is drama and action and everything in between. And it's flawless. He traverses the film landscape seamlessly. And that is not something that someone who is in an action movie like this in Western cinema can often say. Schwarzenegger has no range for the most part. As much as I like Jingle All the Way or the zombie movie that he's in, those are weird little exceptions that prove the rule. Like those are two movies in a catalog of Terminator and Judgment Day and
Predator,
Collateral and everything. Predator and Last Action Hero and whatever, Commando and whatever the fuck. Like he doesn't have the same kind of range that Shah Rukh Khan does, because Shah Rukh Khan's in serious movies and in rom-coms. And I mean, he cut his teeth as a early 90s. So in 93, he cut his teeth on Dar, where he plays a stalker, which is not, again, like I've never seen it, but I know that it is a classic of his early career. And I want to watch that movie because I want to see what that looks like. Because I can't even imagine Shah Rukh Khan being the villain of a movie, quote unquote. And I know that in some movies he is. Like, I'm pretty sure in the remake of Dawn, he is the villain as well. So it's interesting because like he does have a lot of range, but when he's just being charismatic, like it seems to be, when they're just letting him be himself, that seems to be the most successful. Because you know what? Brahmastra, he was like one of the best parts of that movie.
Heck yeah. Well, what's interesting about like this movie, I think we mentioned it while we were there watching. Like I've heard SRK talk in like an interview about a movie or something, and same with the guy who plays Jim. What's his name? John Abraham. Like when they're in the movie, and I don't know if there's anything added in the audio to this, but like they can just talk like how I'm talking now in real life, but in the movie, they're talking like this. But they fucking kill it like that. Like they're talking like that the whole movie. And it's like, I don't know, they just deliver.
There's something about Hindi that's just, it sounds so epic when it's spoken slowly and in a lower register. Because Shah Rukh Khan is talking like this the entire movie. And so is John Abraham for that matter. But it's, again, like we laughed at it when Christian Bale did it in the Batman movies, right? But here it works.
Yeah.
Because they're just not overdoing it. Like they're playing into the expectation of what you're thinking you're going to get with your action star of your movie and your villain of your movie. They're expecting that you're going to have a character that talks like this, and it works.
The same tone as everything else.
Yeah, he's there.
Like
exactly.
the tone of the movie. Yes, you would have those people that talk like that.
Yeah, but I think the big takeaways for me with going to see this in theaters is, outside of the subtitles, this felt like any other big blockbuster movie that we would go and see. Like just on the face of it, not the quality of the movie or anything presented, but like that experience of going and sitting in a theater, it felt similar to other big action movies I've seen, which I think for me, because we left the theater and we walked out and we were walking through the lobby and the guy was like, "Hey, what movie did you guys see?" And I was like, "We saw Pathaan." And he's like, "What is that?" And so, so we got in this conversation with him, but I was kind of wondering while we were standing there, like what would I have to say to someone to sell them on this movie to go and see it over whatever else is playing in the theaters right now? Because we're about to have a new Ant-Man movie in like 2 weeks come out, right? So what is stopping is if it's purely subtitles, fine. Fucking dumb reason, fine. But I feel like we're not seeing advertisements for these movies. We commented on this when we were sitting there. They didn't show a single preview for an Indian cinema film before the Indian cinema film that we were there to see, which I would go out on a limb and say that people who were there to see Pathaan are not there by accident. So they probably want to see previews for Indian cinema movies. I'm just spitballing here, Greg Marcus of Marcus Cinema.
It blows my mind that not even one.
No, not even one. Not even one with subtitles, which we know is a thing because that's how we watched the trailer for Pathaan the night before, was with subtitles on YouTube. We don't know Hindi. I mean, I know a little, but I don't know enough to just turn the subtitles off. But I mean, they could show a preview for Pathaan in the theater before any movie that they're showing to drum up interest for the movie that they're going to be showing in their theater. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think if you went and saw a movie in the theaters a couple weeks ago, they would have even shown a preview for Pathaan.
Yeah.
And I don't get the point, I guess.
So the only way you're going to the movie is if you know.
Literally, like that's what it feels like. And that feels like a shame because for people not to be interested in something primarily because they just don't know about it's an easy problem to fix in a lot of ways.
I shared the trailer with probably a dozen people that day after we went to the movie and told them I just watched this in the theater. It's awesome. Out of the dozen, I probably got 3 that were like interested in maybe going to it or checking it out. So, which I kind of expected. I mean, some of those people were like, subtitles, no way. Like, it's like, man, you're missing out. You could almost not put the subtitles on there and it would still be fun to watch.
Well, and that was kind of what we had been talking about while we were sitting there. It's like, I think these movies work best when they're a really broad stroke and the characters can be understood without the dialogue. And again, it's obvious John Abraham is the bad guy. It's obvious that SRK is the hero. And, the Deepika Padukone character, her twist wouldn't make sense without dialogue, but she visually betrays SRK as well. So you would be able to understand that scene with or without the dialogue. I think in 2023, not watching a movie because of subtitles, I'm actually going to take a stand now because I know that I'm not lightly standing, but this is a hard stance. If you can't get over the fact that you have to watch a movie with subtitles to watch that movie, get the fuck over it.
Yeah.
Like for fucking real now with shit like this, with a movie like Pathaan, you are not going to watch this movie because of subtitles, then you're a fucking idiot as far as I'm concerned.
It's a big, big world and there's a lot of people in a lot of places making really cool shit. So
and a lot cooler shit than we're making right now. Like this stuff is more interesting, more novel, more unique than whatever we're going to get this year. And I'm not saying that Western cinema is bad. I spend most of my time talking about Western cinema, but I spend most of my time talking about Western cinema. So like the trends in Western cinema are very easy to follow if you are having to sit and watch things constantly and then take a step back and go, what are the trends here and what are we pushing for? Because we're on post superhero movies now. Like superhero movies are not what they used to be. And it feels that way. I don't know if the pandemic did it or it's just Marvel did it to themselves. And maybe Ant-Man will revitalize everything. But it feels like that big, everybody's into Marvel and everybody's Infinity War. Like doesn't feel like that anymore. It feels a lot more of a level playing field for everybody. And it feels like it's now time for movies that aren't being made by Americans to get a bigger play. Because like you just said, the world is a big place. It's massive. There's so many good movies out there that are being ignored by Westerners because they have to read. And I think that's such a shame.
The way you put that.
It's just like so fucking stupid. I don't know how else to explain it other than you don't like to read, but we read all the time. When people tell me they don't read, I ask them how do you do anything? You look at your phone, you're reading, you're on Facebook, you're reading, you're on Twitter, you're reading, you are reading. You're just not reading anything that matters. You're wasting your time. You're fucking doom scrolling and looking at TikTok and Instagram and shit. And again, if you want to use that as a distraction, fine, but don't tell me you don't read. You're just not reading anything with purpose. You're just reading small tidbits of information throughout the day and amassing that in a bag as opposed to a couple things that are specific that you've spent a lot of time on, like a movie or a book or whatever, whatever you want to read.
You're reading, or I might even say just watching words. You're not really comprehending much with what you just described, but something like this, like you have to read, you have to comprehend and attach it to what's happening. I don't know. To me, it makes for a more like plugged in experience because I'm hearing another language. I'm reading what it means. I'm seeing and feeling the action. Like you can almost start to, like I've been saying Jahind all the time now because now I know what it means. And I like the power that it delivers when it's said.
Especially by SRK.
Yeah.
Jahind. It's so good. Everything about this movie is so good, and it bums me out so much that you know what it bums me out, makes me mad, however you want to put it. It makes me so mad that you have to convince people to watch this movie because you don't have to convince people to watch half of the other shit that people are watching. Let me convince you to watch The Office for the fourth time, or watch, or Captain America or whatever. Like, I don't have to convince you to watch any of those things, but I have to convince you to watch a massive action movie with some of the wildest set pieces I've seen in a while and some great music to boot and some really interesting actors. And I have to convince you to watch that because of some subtitles. All right, fine. Like I guess, but the point behind this podcast and the reason I wanted to do this show was to share with people who are already into this some films worth checking out, but also to plead to convince people who are maybe not that into this idea that it is 100% okay to have never seen one of these movies before, but to have this like visceral reaction of I won't watch a movie with subtitles it feels oddly racist.
Yeah.
I don't want to say racism because I know that that's a dog whistle in and of itself, but what don't you like about having to read subtitles? If it's purely I have to be engaged, then you shouldn't be watching anything. Like you're effectively not, like you said. I mean, just having something on in the background does not count at all. Like, I'm sorry, but if you think that I sit and watch movies for the Culture Cast and I'm not sitting and watching the movie, I don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean? Like, you have to be an active viewer, like you said, to appreciate Indian cinema. And I think maybe that's what it is people just want to be able to be on their phones or doing other stuff, which I get you can do with English language stuff because you don't have to look at the screen. But then why not just listen to something then? Because if you're not looking at the screen, then why not listen to an audiobook or a podcast or something else? Because if the screen doesn't matter and you want to look at your phone. Oh, right. Because people don't read books. even if they could listen to them. So
Mhm.
I think it's just a matter of we don't want to be engaged by anything.
Yeah. Don't make me think.
Don't make me pay attention. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what, like you said, if you go into this movie, you can't sit on your phone, not because you don't or can't or don't want to. It's because you literally can't, because you will not. If you want to know what's happening, you won't be able to know if you don't.
You've got to connect dots.
Yeah.
What's being said to what's happening. And yeah, and I was just sitting there thinking about people listening to this episode right now. I want them to look at the timestamp of the audio right now. And when you share this with a friend that you think should watch this movie or check out, it's that friend that doesn't watch things because they have subtitles. Share this moment with them. Tell them to fast forward to this moment. And okay, now I'm talking to that person. As you said earlier, get over yourself. Go try something new. Go watch this movie. It wasn't until Chris, our dear host, asked me to check out a couple of these Indian cinema movies, and I have not been more excited for watching movies than I have been since doing that. Like you said, Western cinema is one thing. Yeah, these movies are out. Sure, I want to see them. Every movie we've talked about, I have been excited to watch because it's all new, and it's even older movies, but it's still it's a new type of cinema. It's a new type of film that I'm just not used to. The formula is different,
Right.
And that's exciting.
Well, and what's funny is, like, you watch something like this, right? And you can see the influences, Mission Impossible, James Bond with the gadgets and all kinds of stuff. But like you said, ultimately, all this is a formula that we've seen viewed through another culture, and that enough is exciting. The sensibilities of Indian filmmakers and Indian actors and Indian producers and Indian screenwriters and Indian playback singers and everybody involved in Indian cinema in a production pre and post capacity are bringing a unique viewpoint to it that we do not have as Westerners, as the kind of Westerners we are.
Even not just viewpoint, but the execution of it,
right?
It feels different. Like, it's just different. Right. I feel like the actors like almost give a shit more than what I'm usually watching.
I'm inclined to agree with you, even if that's just us kind of viewing it through masala tinted glasses, which I don't think is the case. But I mean, like anything else, when you watch something new, it's exciting to get excited about it. But
yeah,
I have been doing this now. So this show, Bollywood Cinema Club, came out of me doing Indian cinema 1 month in 2018 or 2019. It's 5 years later, and I'm still as excited as I was then to watch these movies now. And I have but scratched the surface. I will never watch everything. I have done 5 Indian cinema movies a year for the last 4 years, and finally launching it into its own thing where it'll be 26 episodes of a show a year. And if people want it to be weekly, I would even go to weekly. Because again, why not? Like you said, there's never going to be enough time to watch all of them. But at the same time, I can try to watch all the good. I can at least try to watch some of the good ones, because not everything's going to be good. But even the stuff that I've seen that's not great, it's still entertaining. It's still interesting. It still has something to offer, even if it's not entirely all quality. But at the same time, like you said, I get excited for this in a way that I don't get excited for anything else. And I'm not the only one, and you're not the only one, because people who have done this with me and been on this show, like yourself, like Heather, like Father Malone, like Mike White, like Jess Byard and Maggie the Odd, and Otto and Adam and everybody else who's guested on this show, they always ask me, when are we doing another one of these? What are we doing next? What can we do next? This is not forcing anybody. Everybody's super excited. And that's never the case with the Culture Cast. Not everybody's not on the same page there. Sometimes people are like, oh, this movie sucked. Oh, I didn't want to watch it.
Pirates.
Yeah, well, not that movie.
Not me, of course.
Not you, and not that movie. But I hadn't been so excited to go see a movie in the theaters in a long time as I was seeing this. And you know what? I said it to you when we left the cinema, when we left the theater, that we should try to do this like more often. Maybe not all the time, but like once a month. Because again, like, we do have the opportunity to see these movies new, which is not something I really was expecting. I was expecting maybe we would have to go to Omaha, which not that big of a deal. I mean, it's 45 minutes. We have more movie theaters there because, well, our town has some bullshit and we have to go and support the bullshit to be able to watch movies, which fucking sucks, frankly. But the fact that we have this in a movie theater, is it the one that's kind of a pain in the ass to get to? Sure. But if you go on a weekday, it literally doesn't matter.
Parked across the street.
Right. It's nice to know that we can watch these movies in the theaters stateside with subtitles the day that they come out, because that opens up a whole new world for this show, because I can go and watch the new Indian cinema movie before it comes out on Prime Video 2 months later for the Western audience, ostensibly. Because again, at the end of this movie, we saw that there was a Prime Video little logo, meaning that that's probably where it's going to be when it comes over here, just like Triple R, just like Lal Singh Chadha did on Netflix. So, and
I'm going to watch it when it comes out.
I hope
Prime
so.
Video.
I will too. I'm going to throw it on my home theater downstairs and crank that fucking thing up and watch the shit out of it. And I've already seen it. I'm excited to watch it again. And that is not the case for most things anymore.
Yeah. Sometimes a lot of time has to go by, but I can't wait.
Yeah. And I can't wait to watch Ek the Tiger and its sequel, and then the kind of the next in the line of the YRF movies, the War, which is the one with my personal favorite, Hrithik Roshan. But I, like yourself, have not been this excited to watch movies in a long time, and I am so glad that you feel the same way, because I don't get to feel validated a lot on this show, but I do feel validated here with you about Indian cinema. And I'm not going to say everybody else I wasn't concerned, but I was kind of concerned because you don't come from the background that a lot of the other people I work with. And I never know how anybody's going to respond to something like this. And it is so reassuring to me to watch these movies with you and you go, this is a lot of fun. I'm enjoying this.
Yep.
So thank you for enjoying these movies. Because again, if you said, oh, these movies suck, like, oh no, I found the person who doesn't want to read the subtitles.
Instead, I'm saying, when's the next one?
Exactly. I'm right there with you. And we're getting Tiger 3 later this year. So and Shah Rukh Khan's going to be in it. And another Shah Rukh Khan movie's coming out in a couple months. And I'm sure that Indian cinema movies are coming out, if not every week, whenever they're coming out in India. If they're a big enough movie, they're probably coming over here if they have distribution. And is it one screen? Yes. But you know what's better than no screens? One screen.
That's right.
I wish that we had the opportunity to see these movies on our side of town, but the theaters here on our side of town are more are leaner for the things that people want to see that they're not risking putting in the theaters, because this is a risk. And ultimately that's why I was so surprised that we could go see it, because I would not have thought Marcus Theaters would be showing Indian cinema. But because I know Cinemark does and Alamo Drafthouse does and a lot of other big chains do, but we're not ethnically diverse here in this community in a way that I would have thought would have necessitated it. But I am so unbelievably glad. And I'm so glad that we got to see this together. And we had one of the best movie-going experiences that I've personally ever had. So, and it wasn't just the movie. It was the company. It was the movie. It was everything. Yeah. And I want to kick it to you as we end this episode. What's kind of your takeaway from Pathaan?
I mean, it made me even more excited for more movies coming out of India. And I don't know, I just this is one of those movies I can't wait to show to people, either out of their own free will to watch it, or I will make them watch it.
I really want you to watch Triple R. Like, I feel like you're going to
on my list.
I feel like you're going to feel the same way about Triple R that you do about this movie, and maybe even more so. Because again, Triple R is kind of now this kind of lightning rod, given that Natu Natu got nominated for an Oscar, and there are people complaining, myself included, that Indian cinema didn't get enough love at the Oscars, as if the Oscars actually fucking matter. But there are people that watch the Oscars to have their taste made, and it would be nice if Indian cinema could make it across their eyes a little bit more to maybe give them an idea that Indian cinema isn't just fucking Slumdog Millionaire, which isn't an Indian cinema movie. It was directed by a British guy. So just pointing this out for everybody playing it, and it won the Oscar because of course it did. Because of course it did. Look, you know what? I think a lot of people, myself included, have a very weird relationship with Slumdog Millionaire because it's very patronizing in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I'm personally not a fan of that movie because Danny Boyle is just okay by my approximation, which I know will make a lot of people who like Danny Boyle's movies very angry. But ultimately, Danny Boyle doesn't need to be making a faux Bollywood movie,
right?
As a British director, like
disingenuous.
No. Yeah. A lot disingenuous. So as far as I'm concerned, I'd much rather watch this movie or War or Ek the Tiger or anything that we've watched together, Bahubali or Brahmastra or anything. So, I think for me, I'm glad that we watched it. I'm glad that we could go to the theaters and watch it. And I'm glad that the movie was good because, again, all those things without the movie being good would have just been, well, it was fun, but the movie was kind of a lark. And, we were talking about this when we were leaving the theater on Twitter. There were a bunch of people saying, this movie is crap and it's stupid. And fine. I mean, you're entitled to your opinion, but if you're going into this expecting some sort of serious rumination on things, you wandered into the wrong movie theater, guys.
Yep. Get rid of all those expectations and just go have a good time at the movie theater.
Yeah, which is so rare these days.
Yeah.
It feels like such a rare thing to be able to find. So on that note, the next time you can hear Dustin and I will be talking about, I don't know, maybe Ek the Tiger.
I don't know. So.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, we kind of kicked it around, but we'll be coming back at some point, you and I, to talk about something. But until then, you can find you and I and everybody else over at weirdingwaymedia.com, where every week we post plenty of shows that you should be listening to, including this one, The Culture Cast, Mike White's The Projection Booth, Father Malone's Dark Destinations, Twisted and Uncorked. I could keep going, but I don't want to because you should just go and see for yourself over at weirdingwaymedia.com. As for this show, BollywoodCinemaClub.com, Bollywood Cinema Club on social media, but that shit sucks and nobody cares. So just listen to the show, like, rate, and review wherever you find it. And as always, we'll catch you on the next episode.
Peace.